Hey, this is David Wakefield with Prime Lending.
Steve Williams with the Edgewater Home Team, powered by eXp Realty.
I love it. He's powered.
I'm powered.
I'm powerful. He's powered. Okay. So now at this point, guys, we've gone through the process. We have found the houses you want. You've made the offer, and now the contract's been accepted. Now what?
Oh my gosh. Well, we got to arrange a couple things. One, we have a certain time period, typically 2-3 business days, to get your binder, your initial binder, into the escrow agent, the title company that'll be handling the closing. Other thing we need to schedule is your home inspection, because we want to make sure that behind those walls we're getting exactly what we're expecting, and that will involve the HVAC system, your plumbing, your electrical, your flooring, your walls, your roof, everything we need to ensure we can get a good homeowner's insurance policy at the best possible price. So all that will be taking place typically within the first 10 days, and you've got to get with David to make sure he gets all the loose ends he needs to finalize your loan.
Exactly. And per the contract, and Steve will certainly point this out, if you've not made formal loan application by this point, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? You've got, how many days do they have?
Typically 5 days.
So 5 days to finalize the application with me, basically. That means we're going to sign the application with the address. Now, if we did our buyer's edge approval like we talked about previously, we've already got it in there. I just need to update the application at that point, drop the address in, and redisclose based on the numbers per the contract. That's when you pay for the appraisal. And if it's a condo, you got to pay for certain condo things so we can approve the condo. You've already given, by this point, Steve, the money for the binder deposit, which is your good faith to the seller that you want to buy that house, which, by the way, that number, the binder money, comes off of the bottom line figure. So if I say you need $50,000 to close and you gave a $5,000 binder, then we need about $45,000 in that closing time in the next 30 days, whenever the closing comes up.
Yeah.
So at this point now, Steve, he kicks back and relaxes. He's been driving around, he's been showing you houses, and now he's sitting on the beach with his feet propped up in the sand, or he's going surfing or something. And this is where the pressure's on me and the rubber meets the road. So now all eyes are on me to perform, to make sure we get you closed on time and on schedule.
Yeah. And I'm not that totally relaxed, but behind the scenes, we are still working on your behalf. One of the things we're going to help tee you up while David's working hard on his end is we want to make sure we line up the best homeowner's insurance policy for you. So we have several options for you behind the scenes that you'll get to interview and evaluate and decide who you want to go with on that. So that's an important point that you'll need to have in place to finish the loan qualification process for David.
Exactly. So at this point, in all seriousness, though, this is where we're under the clock, right? I mean, the clock is ticking. We got to get stuff done. So when I'm asking for documents now, if we've already done the buyer's edge approval, we've already been approved. We probably don't need anything updated, maybe an updated pay stub or bank statement. But if I ask for documents, please understand that you have to get those to me very promptly, because if not, your delay of a day or two or three means we could miss our closing date by a day or two or three, which makes nobody happy.
And makes nobody happy, because the last thing we want to do is to have to go to the seller and say we need an extension on the purchase, and that usually creates all kind of consternation. But if it ever came to that, we can overcome that as well.
Exactly. And by the way, at this time, since you now have a home under contract, this is the time we secure the interest rate. That's when we lock in that interest rate. And one of the things that we do when we lock the rate, the market changes every day. And I always tell people getting the best rate is kind of like chasing the wind, right? Because it's like every time you fill up at the gas station, you drive one exit up and you go, darn it, I could have saved a nickel or 10 cents. It's the same thing. Rates change daily, in some cases multiple times each day. When we lock in most of the loan products that we offer, we have a free float down option. Now, this is not available for everything, but the majority of them. And what that means is if we lock in your rate, if the rate gets better prior to closing, we've got a one-time chance of dropping that rate at no cost to you. So that does give you kind of that advantage, and it kind of takes the pressure off of pulling the trigger and knowing exactly when to pull that trigger to lock in. And I kind of call it the biggest no-brainer in the business, right?
Oh man, that's a great insurance policy to know that you can drop the rate if something favorable goes in your favor, and if something goes unfavorable as far as the rates climbing, you're protected. So that's a good thing, David.
Exactly. And by the way, at this point too, contract's accepted. You've provided all the documents. You've paid for the appraisal. Now the appraisal comes in. Now, Steve, ideally, it meets value. There's no repairs. We're all blissfully happy with the appraisal results. But what happens if there are repairs that are needed?
Usually what we do is we will get quotes to make those repairs, and then we can either negotiate two ways with the seller. We can either ask him to make those repairs in advance of closing. if there's enough time to accomplish that. If not, then what we can typically do is we'll take that the dollar amounts to make those repairs, and we'll negotiate with the seller to give us a credit at closing and the amount of the cost of those repairs to be credited to you, so that you can get the repairs done before you move in after closing to your satisfaction. And that's a good. Those two ways work very effectively.
Exactly. And another thing too, by the way, Steve, in the event the repairs are needed prior to closing, and sometimes they are, depending on what's found in a home inspection or the appraisal, that is, we do have the ability in a lot of cases to do what's called an escrow holdback. And that's where we approve the contractor and get his license and his insurance, and you select him, but we approve him. And then once we close, then those repairs are put in place after closing. So we kind of finance those in. They can be buyer paid for or seller paid for. But basically that way we get you closed and nothing's delayed, because in some cases the severity of the repairs might require that work to be done prior to actually getting to closing.
It's very rare that we can't work this out in between the buyer and the seller, but in those very rare circumstances when it cannot be worked out, then you're under no obligation to finish the closing on that home. But it's maybe 1 out of 10 times does it happen we can't reach the finish line with that, because the seller's just as motivated to sell as you are just as motivated to buy, and we can always find common ground.
Exactly. Beautiful. All right. So guys, now at this point, basically the mortgage process is done. Steve's got all the inspections done, and we're just about to the finish line. So the next conversation, the next video basically is going to be talking about what happens when we're cleared to close. And that's going to be coming up next. So
we pop the champagne then.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that'll be coming.